Okay, this article is about North Korean refugees. Of course, the conditions are allegedly so bad. There's another article in the same book about cannibalism. It's believable that cannibalism is widespread in North Korea. Imagine. And public executions. Of course, the Kim Jong Il regime remains in power now by sheer terror. That is, the police, the secret police must be everywhere. There must be government spies and people everywhere. Surveillance must be everywhere. Now, the number of people who have escaped has increased dramatically. In 2000, the number was up to 303 in 1 year. What I would prefer to focus on is if 303 escaped, some of them, of course, diplomats and wealthy, 3 military officers, that's interesting, but mostly common people. Now, who escapes? It's not the very poor, because one needs money to escape. It's kind of what might be loosely called a middle class, which hardly exists in North Korea. Why? Because the only way they will be successful is by paying off guards. And the guards want money. Unless there are literally guards who look the other way out of sheer compassion. But I doubt that, because they fear. If they were detected at this, they and their whole families would be killed. No question. That's the way it works. So, if 303 escaped, how many got caught and were killed? That's a scary thought in itself. Another idea that's here, they are applying for refugee status. That is, they are not simply escaping from their country to another country, but they are refugees from a disaster or from a tyrannical, monstrous regime. It is a monstrous regime. It is a frightening. Imagine the fear. Imagine the fear that North Koreans live in. Now, an interesting side note is the existence of the black market in North Korea. And I have heard that it's pretty large. Now, that's an interesting idea. I think I've said this before, but if I haven't, a large black market can exist only by the tacit permission of the government. Do we think the government doesn't know about the black market? Do we think the government doesn't know who's running the black market? Do we think the government isn't watching the black market? No, of course not. The government allows the black market to exist. This gives some people some hope. The danger is that people discover the goods, the products, the lifestyles abroad. That's the danger. But clearly this government has calculated the risks and the benefits and has decided that to permit the black market to exist is better than to try to kill it, because then they are flirting with real resistance, maybe. Besides, probably the customers of the black market are soldiers and government people themselves. Anyway, this is a lot like the book 1984, Orwell's picture. Is really perfectly like it, except the poverty is much, much worse. Final element here. Apparently in 2000, 5,000, how did they get this number? I don't know. 5,000 North Korean women sold themselves abroad as wives and prostitutes to China. Now, I'm a little suspicious of this. These women had to have government permission to go abroad. What did they do? Go to the North Korean officials and say, "Hi, I'm a prostitute. Let me go to China to practice my prostitution"? I'm real skeptical about that figure and how this worked, or I would like to know how it works. I can't imagine that the government simply says, "Yes, here's a passport. Go abroad and be a prostitute," or "Here's a passport. Go abroad and be the wife of some Chinese." it's a little hard to imagine in such a repressive, cruelly repressive system. But is it reaching a critical stage? I don't think so. The system, the regime in North Korea has read and has understood the book 1984. They know how they can stay in power, and they are successful at doing it. And I don't see any reason to think that some popular uprising will bring them down. That would demand some organization. Impossible. That would demand the existence of pockets, groups. Impossible in that country. The only possibility of an end to the system in North Korea is a civil war. I've discussed this before, but I'll mention it here. A civil war that is generals who have a lot of power, especially those that control nuclear, but just generals who have, of course, thousands of soldiers. Generals somehow able to unite, even 3 or 4 of them, starting a civil war. That's the only possibility that I see of an end to the situation in North Korea. And I'll finish that scenario. If that civil war were to break out in North Korea between Kim Jong Il's guys and these other guys, the winner would be the side that made contact with the U.S. and said, "Hi, support me. Will you support me?" And of course the U.S. would say, along with Seoul, would say, "Sure, but understand that at the end of this, you're going to have a democracy. The regime is finished. We will protect you, but you're not going to become the new Kim Jong Il. We are going to take charge for a while, just like Iraq." That's the only way I can imagine this ending, because it's a terrorist regime. Their control of the minds and bodies of people is terrifying.